This podcast often contains controversial or mature topics. You have been warned. Editor's note, we mistakenly thought that this movie had two different directors. It did only have one director, but both Abrams and Johnson worked together on the story with the transition between 7 and 8, and that was our concern, that the writing staff had two different kind of visionary directions, and that caused confusion. Thank you for your understanding. Hello and welcome back to Raygun Readers. This is the time of the year when the planet Earth is at a certain point in its orbit around the sun, and it's cold, and there are many, many seasonal traditions and celebrations for Earthlings, but none are more...
It's only cold in the northern hemisphere of the planet, okay?
That's where all the important mortals are, clearly. The most important, of course, and the oldest tradition is Star Wars. So today we are talking about Star Wars.
Is that a Christmas tradition on Earth? I'm not even sure.
It is now. The last 3 years, it's been a Christmas tradition.
Oh boy.
Uh-huh.
Wait, 3? It was a Christmas tradition for Rogue One too?
Yeah.
Came out on Christmas?
Yeah. They released, I believe, they released in December.
Are you sure about that? You want to check your facts?
I'll check my facts in just a moment. But hello and
check
welcome,
your
everybody.
Privileged facts.
We are going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 8.
We are the only people on YouTube that ever had the idea of discussing Star Wars.
And this is how much we love you guys. We haven't even seen Red Letter Media talk about Star Wars before. Oh, wait. Did they talk about Star Wars before we talked about Star Wars? Oh, no.
You talking about the Nerd Crew?
No. Talking about Half in the Bag.
I don't know.
It came out.
It came out?
It came out today. I haven't seen it yet.
Boy.
Other than Red Letter Media and us, no one else on YouTube has capitalized on talking about Star Wars. So we're going to talk about Star Wars.
And everybody is going to disagree with everything we say. Because I've disagreed with a lot of things that I've heard already.
Oh man, I had a big discussion on Too Spooky today, actually, during my lunch break.
Really?
Yeah.
About what?
We'll discuss it. There's a lot of back and forth.
Well, how are we going to structure this asinine discussion about something that our culture cares way too much about?
Star Wars. We're going to break it up into 3 portions. And just to let everyone know right now, this is going to contain heavy spoilers. So the first portion is going to be just our initial impressions, spoiler-free. Which, if anyone's curious, that will give them the opportunity to listen and see what we kind of generally think, and then they can stop, go watch the movie, come back, listen to the rest of it. I'm borrowing this heavily from our reviews with The Witching Hour when we did Life. So they're kind of the same thing.
Also, but do we have a section where we're going to talk about the good stuff in the movie?
Yes, actually.
And the bad stuff in the movie?
I kind of want to start with the good stuff in our in-depth portion.
Okay. Oh, that was me.
Oh, okay.
That was my butt. That wasn't my butt.
I would hope not, because their butts scrape metal. So we're going to do just our kind of initial reactions to it, our general sense of how we feel about it. We're going to go kind of into a little bit of background of what Star Wars means to us, what we like about Star Wars.
You mean how everyone feels about Star Wars?
Not everyone feels the same about Star Wars.
Okay.
And this movie has proven that.
And then we met a pleb last night who'd never seen Star Wars.
But knew a lot through osmosis, which is a testament to how much of a cultural touchstone Star Wars really is. It's intense. And then I think we'll just close out with some closing thoughts.
Do you think in 1,000 years, people are going to look back and go, to the historical texts or the historical...
In 2,000 years, I assure you, Jedi and Sith-isms will be a bona fide religion.
I don't know about that.
I would not be surprised.
But
people are already on the censuses that come out, they'll put Jedi or Sith.
I don't know, because the things that survive culturally are always really interesting. They're not always...
You're saying Star Wars isn't interesting?
No, I'm just saying Mozart was more interesting than Salieri, even though Salieri was more prolific and more, popular at the time.
Okay, but...
Just, saying...
Star Wars is... Well, it depends.
Maybe in the future they'll be super into...
Kanye West.
Yeah, like deciphering what
Weird
Kanye
Al.
West really means with his lyrics.
And even in 1,000 years, they still won't be able to know. He's a genius.
They're probably not going to know 99.5%.
99.5, huh?
Unless they're like history nerds like you. Maybe, who knows, maybe we'll be the most famous
Stop
people
stalling
in
for
2,000
time
years.
so we can talk about Star Wars, the most important thing ever to exist. So, do you want to go first?
No.
Okay, I will go first then. So, the question is just a brief statement on whether...
What does Star Wars mean to you, Abysmii?
That second part. You didn't listen to anything I just said.
No, what is it?
Okay. So, basically... Did I like the movie? Would I recommend it? And the brief statement is, it's complicated. I liked parts of it. There's other parts I did not like that prevent me from being as hyped up about it as other people, I think. I would say see it to kind of decide for yourself, because for me and for other people I've spoken with, this was kind of the movie to see if I want to continue watching Star Wars, if I want to continue, going to the movies and everything. And that answer to that question is pretty complicated too, so I'm not going to say it here. But I would say see it, and I'm conflicted on how I feel about it. What about you? Brief statement.
Brief statement. Well, I went into the movie because somebody paid for my ticket. And I wouldn't have paid to go to it myself in the first place. But I at the end of it, I have really mixed feelings, and I'm willing to see the third one because I watched this one. Mm-hmm. Which is that's the best thing I can say about it, is that they kept...
I'm willing to go to the next one.
They interested me enough into making their return, making me return on the third one. So I guess Disney wins.
Mm-hmm. Disney often gets their way. They just did buy most of Fox, so that's a good indicator. Okay, so spoilers starting now. Well, not really, but this is a good spot to stop and go see the movie if you haven't, and then tune back in.
Wait, not spoilers yet. Luke is pregnant with another Force baby.
Spoiler, not spoiler.
Oops. Did I say that out loud?
That's what he's been doing on the island this entire time, having Force babies with those... Well, I can't say that because that's a spoiler. Anyway, so...
the island is inhabited by other people. Which you don't figure out until, 40 minutes into the movie?
And not at the first... yeah, we'll get to that. So, rather quickly, I want to go into... what is your experience with Star Wars?
My experience with Star Wars?
Yes, I can go first if you want.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Star Wars, I saw the original trilogy... Gosh, I forget how old I was, but it was during one of the theatrical re-releases to get everyone hyped up for episode 1. So my parents took me, and I loved them. Loved all of them. I immediately wanted to be in that world, wanted to be in the Star Wars galaxy.
Who doesn't?
That's the charm. That's the charm of Star Wars. Despite its age, it is so immersive and very compelling. Very well put together. There are flaws, of course, but are they overshadowed?
There's a lot of flaws in the story.
They're like every movie, but none of them take me out of the experience, which I can't say the same for 8. The prequels, I was a very young kid when I saw them, so I remember not knowing a lot of what was going on, but boy, do I love lightsabers. And I think that was a primary target audience for the prequels.
Right.
And
we were in our teens when that came out, huh?
I think preteen. I think
about there. I remember that because my cousins were super into Hayden Christensen when they were around my age. Hayden, that's how you say his name, right?
Hayden Christensen, yes.
So
may or may not be related to him.
So yeah, that's the age we were. Is that man was supposed to appeal to my demographic?
Which he did, I guess.
What,
he nailed Natalie Portman. Something worked.
Well, inside the movie he did. In reality, probably not.
Who knows? I wasn't there. Yes, so saw all the prequels. I didn't rewatch the prequels for a long time. I would occasionally rewatch the original trilogy, but the one thing the prequels did that I can say is a bonus is they influenced a lot of really, really, really good video games who had the foresight to put themselves even farther away from the movies and kind of expand on the already existing universe, hence expanded universe. There's a lot of really good writing in there. There's just there's something for everybody in the video games, believe it or not. And that was that was me tuning into Star Wars for a long time until 7 and the new trilogy started up after Disney bought them. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that I watched Star Trek more than Star Wars, and Star Trek's had a bigger kind of influence on me and my tastes, but Star Wars was formidable and sizable. And my love of music was definitely influenced by Star Wars and John Williams' orchestral scores. So I think that's the importance of Star Wars to me. What about you?
When I remember first, my parents had Star Wars on VHS all through while I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I wore out Return of the Jedi because that one was my favorite. For me, I grew up in a small house and we didn't get out a whole lot. So, like, it was a world I could escape to, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't play any of the video games, though.
You didn't play, hey, didn't you? Didn't you guys
Which
have
one?
something on N64 or something?
Star Wars? Oh!
Yeah.
Dude, that fucking game. Oh, gosh.
Not Rebel Commander.
No,
I'm forgetting.
the one on Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm
one on Star Wars.
The Star Wars one.
Jeez, give me your phone. I have my phone.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I watched my brother play that game a lot, and the backgrounds, the music was so immersive and cool.
Yeah, we are currently looking
and
up the Star Wars game.
It freaked me out.
Was it like a? This is going to be hard, by the way.
Shadows of the Empire.
Oh, okay, you found it.
No. Yeah, it was Shadows of the Empire.
For the N64, I thought so.
Oh my gosh, that game was so hard and was scary and had all these levels with the bosses that would freaked me out because there were a lot of robots. And I remember one of the later levels was on the Death Star. Mm-hmm. And just the scenes where you could look down and you were looking into oblivion, like purple haze.
Yeah.
With the music in the background. I don't know. I mean,
and back then that was scary because those graphics were pretty new.
Right.
We hadn't seen that before.
Like going back and playing this game makes the reason it goes off into infinity is because they couldn't render that far.
Yeah.
But
it was easy. Our space kitty wants in.
Yeah,
keep talking to the people.
But yeah, it was for me. It's just another environment. I wish I was in. I guess.
You want to talk about Star Wars? No. Okay.
I'm trying to think how it really influenced me. Other than that.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I just want to say on the video games, the first Star Wars video game I had was a kind of like a flight simulator one where you had to like fly the training mission. And I forgot the name of the ship, but you were flying in a canyon and it was like control with a joystick or control with a mouse. That was fun. Then when the prequels came out, I played one with my brother, which was a co-op game where you basically took over 2 Jedi and you just played through episode 1. Mm-hmm. That was very fun. It was very well put together. And then I played a lot of the first 2 Knights of the Old Republic games, or KOTOR as they're called, which are basically, there are single-player RPGs, very story-heavy, very well written. I think a lot of the new Star Wars are trying to be what the video games are and failing. Mm-hmm. And they should not try to be that because video games work for a reason, movies work for a different reason. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to say about the video games. So did it mean anything to you other than just escapism, which is perfectly valid?
Is it perfectly valid?
I don't
feel like it is.
I think so.
I remember in high school, one of my friends who I think went into the 501st, super into Star Wars, started a forum where we could all basically RP different characters, and I had a fun Force-sensitive character, and I there was enough that you could research it and find where this character's from, create a backstory, create a reason for being there, all that junk. So I mean. As that goes, what happened with Star Wars, the iceberg of knowledge on it allowed for a lot of creativity.
Mm-hmm. A lot of fan movies came out. There's a role playing game. People,
and it's I know it's not, like the less I knew, the more that the expanded universe would surprise me.
Yeah, and there was a lot of it. There's a lot of it out there.
Right.
It's just novels and novels and novels.
So I guess the more I think about it, I guess I'm not super crazy into Star Wars, but I know people who are like easily outstrip me as fans.
Oh yeah.
And like the people that the thing that I think is really special about Star Wars is its ability to create characters. And sometimes, like, those characters don't even have to have very much airtime. I remember in the new series, my favorite character was, what's her name? Aayla Secura. She was a background Twi'lek.
The new series?
The 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, the prequels, okay.
The prequels. She was a background Twi'lek. I met the actress at Comic-Con, and she had, she had a huge line with General Grievous.
General Grievous.
He was also there. My brother got a signature from him. All this stupid shit. It's like
Batman. That's what Grievous sounds like.
I don't know. We'll get into this, but there's just an ability to create. I don't know. For a young person, I think it challenges your mind.
It invites creativity and imagination.
It does. And
absolutely.
I hear a lot of criticisms that Star Wars actually isn't that there's not much you can do with it. I think I disagree with that overall because a lot of things work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the prequels weren't great, but a lot of things work about the prequels. And we'll get into that too, I think. We're going to have a really long discussion. You're going to have to edit a whole lot.
Whatever. I would completely agree with you. One of the majestic things about George Lucas's creative vision is that it's if you just go by the movies, the galaxy is not that big. There's not too much in it. There's planets, but they're all like you don't spend a lot of time going over them, and they're so rich that your mind can wander forever and make new places. And that's one of the nice things about the expanded universe is it just lets people kind of make up other stuff and run with it, and it's gorgeous, but it's unifying enough that if someone looks at it, they'll probably go, that reminds me of Star Wars, and they'll say, yes, that's exactly what I was going off of.
One of the things that Star Wars has that I'd say Star Trek doesn't have, because Star Trek has a built-in flaw that it has to explain everything, which limits the ability of what you can do with Star Trek.
True.
So but Star Wars feels lived in. Every corner of it feels like if you go there, you're going to encounter something new.
Yeah.
Like in the 4, 5, and 6, they don't ever walk into an empty building. There's always a new alien. There's always a new robot.
That's true.
It feels lived in. It feels like there's a million stories all at once going on around you.
It's funny you should mention that because Slime Beast said something in Too Spooky Today about how in the prequels, like almost all the sets, if you're not in space, are pretty confined. The hallways are, big enough for someone to walk through. And the sets are rather like judicious with their space. The prequels, because CGI is a thing and blue screen's a thing, are huge. Everyone's in this very wide open space most of the time, and it's all fake.
In 4, 5, and 6, you mean?
No, in 1, 2, and 3.
In 1, 2.
Yeah.
Oh.
Think like hallways are big, auditoriums are big, the battlefields are big, the arena they're in is big.
Even though they themselves are in a small space.
Yeah, they are. And it's definitely, you can see a visual contrast in 4, 5, and 6 dealing kind of the art through adversity thing of, we have to make a set. We don't have Disney money. So this is what this is going to look like. And for me, it forces a lot of more charm because like those sets, they're decorated well. They're set very well. Poor Space Kitty. She's just going to mew at us for food, which I already fed her. So it's not like I'm not feeding her.
She doesn't want food. She wants you to pet her.
Probably.
But Yeah, we're going to talk about what's good about... I mean, at some point, we're going to have to focus on the movie we watched.
Yeah, so let's move into... If you have anything else to say...
What were you saying? You were saying something important. I forget.
Just the set design. Small versus big, and that's it. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So art through adversity is what you were saying.
Art through adversity, which the 4, 5, and 6, especially.
I think it's actually really important to talk a little bit about 4, 5, and 6 specifically because this movie is trying to mirror a lot of the things 4, 5, and 6 did.
Yeah,
some of it is very successful. Some of it is very unsuccessful, in my opinion. So, what did Star Wars win an award for? A New Hope won
special effects,
an Academy Award for special effects.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that.
Well, before we do that, I just want to say, we're going to the next phase of the review, and we're going to be bouncing around on topics a lot. This is going to be very free form, but overall, and at the end, we're going to answer these questions. Is Episode 8 a good movie? Outside of Star Wars, is it a good movie?
Like you mean by itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it a good Star Wars movie in the context of Star Wars? And you kind of already answered this, but will we be seeing the new movies? Will we be seeing the TV show, the standalones, all that? Will we continue to take part in Star Wars? So those are the 3 we're going to hope to answer. So yes, continue, please.
What was I saying?
I don't remember.
Special effects.
Special effects.
Let's talk about special effects.
Mm-hmm.
A New Hope won awards for special effects. Do we know if they won awards later in the 5 and 6?
I do not know. I could look it up, but...
I kind of want you to.
Okay. Go ahead and talk. I will look it up.
So, in 4, 5, and 6, they use a lot of models. They use a lot of puppets. They use a lot of... what's the word? Optical illusions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I won't say that everything they do is perfect, but I will say that those effects are part of what makes 4, 5, and 6 the Star Wars franchise.
Absolutely.
So we have these puppets that they created, right? Jabba the Hutt is a puppet. In fact, when they tried to do him as a CG character in one of the remastered versions of 4, he looked terrible. Partly because the effects were bad, but even if the effects were really good, I don't think it would be Jabba the Hutt. He wouldn't move the same.
No.
He wouldn't. It wouldn't feel the same. And the reason I bring that up is because there are certain characters in 5 that are CG. There are certain characters that are puppets. At the same time, who's
CG in 5?
Butthole face lady.
You mean 8?
Oh, is that what I said?
You mean 7? Well, she's also an 8. You said 5.
My bad. Ugh, God damn it. We're going to do that a lot.
There's so many of them.
There's so many. There's so much to talk about right now. But let's talk about 8. There's CG characters. Snoke is CG.
Mm-hmm.
The little rabbit things, the frost rabbits, frost foxes are CG.
Crystal critters.
The crystal critters from the Crystal Kingdom. The big cute horse, big-eared furries are CG. And they also look very Disney overall. I think a lot of people are going to look at those characters and say, oh, those are Disney.
This is pissing me off. I keep, it won 1 Oscar, and it got 21 wins, 19 nominations, and it won't tell me which ones are which.
Okay.
Which is very annoying.
Okay.
But yeah, so it won a shit ton of awards.
But basically,
and 6 did as well, I'm sure.
I think what's going on is there were 2 directors for this movie, right? There were J.J. Abrams and then another guy.
Rian Johnson.
Rian Johnson.
Or Ryan. I think that's his name.
Rian Johnson.
Yeah, there were 2 directors.
I think these guys are very conflicted because they've been given this Star Wars IP. And they're saying, do a good job with this. And somebody's telling them to do a really good job with these movies. If they don't...
Now, I want to clarify something there. Are they being told make a good movie or make a safe, profitable movie?
Probably a safe, profitable movie.
We'll get into this later, but I want to clarify, because you bring up a very good point that it has had 2 directors, which as we've seen in other movies, like the Marvel movies and the DC movies, can create problems.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my problems with this movie stem from the fact that you have directors who are not being told, hey, have fun with Star Wars. It's, we've got these writers, they've come up with this pre-approved script, and it needs to hit all these boxes and needs to make sure the porgs are in this many scenes to sell merchandise.
Interestingly, some of the porgs were also puppets.
Were they?
They looked like puppets to me. I mean, I couldn't really tell.
I was too busy being angry at them.
They looked like puppets. But my point is, because these characters are CG, they don't feel like they belong in the Star Wars movie. They feel like they popped out of one of these other, like Alice in Wonderland remake or Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, or one of these really heavy CG things that exist now that all kind of meld together because they all look cartoony and fake.
Yeah.
On top of that, a lot of the ships outside, the whole X-Wing fleet, a lot of those scenes to me seemed entirely to be computer generated, which I think that, I mean, it's definitely the trend now, but in 7, it looked like they were making the effort to create that sort of practical model feel.
They did with a lot.
And here in 8, they just abandoned it entirely, is what it felt like.
Well, a lot of it took place in space. And a lot of it is just kind of on that island where you don't need a lot of special effects. A
lot of what took place in space, the dreadnought, the fleet chasing the smaller fleet, the rebel fleet.
Yeah.
That it didn't. There was no sense of gravity or mass because everything had that very cartoon ability to, I say cartoon because in cartoons you have unrealistic behavior, which is you can get away with because it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
And it, like, the physics of the ships didn't make them feel like they were massive.
Yeah.
Like they were there. And in 7, they took steps to try and do that. In 8, it's like the scope of what you're watching is lost because there's an and this goes back to the directors once again being told to make safe, profitable movies, and J.J. Abrams in particular having just made what he made Star Trek, a couple of the Star Trek movies, and that is just action. I mean, going slow and making something that has mass, I don't think is in his repertoire.
You would think in a movie primarily about space battles and being Star Wars space battles, you would put more emphasis on the practical effects of it, because the trench run from 4, that was miniatures. That was all miniatures. That was all like special lighting effects from Industrial Light and Sound. And it's beautiful. You can definitely tell these days that it is practical effects. It's not real, but it like you say, it has a gravity to it. It has a tangibility for me. And in this one, it was just, it's so blatantly CGI that it was hard to appreciate how big Emperor Snoke's, Supreme Leader Snoke's ship is because just of how it looks and how it feels. Right. And there is definitely something lost when you abandon that crucial thing that made Star Wars, or one of the crucial things that made Star Wars what it is. I think it's a nitpicking, but I think it's also important to mention because they are trying to go back to make Star Wars movies and not make prequel versions where everything was a cartoon. Those entire movies might as well have been cartoons. Well, the cartoons based off of them did a lot, got much better fan reception.
Did they?
Yeah, because they actually they look appropriate. Some of them are pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that it's because even Rogue One, some of the Star Destroyers were there are models, and the way. There's a big reveal of like light from a star shifting and revealing a bunch of them. It's pretty early on in the movie, and I thought that was really cool. And because it's light. When light hits something in CGI, it kind of shatters the illusion because it's very complicated to do that. When you have light hitting a real object,
you need a light source.
Yeah,
you need
to fabricate a light source.
There was that.
And then you're talking
about that scene in 7 where you have the shadow falling on top of the. I'm
talking about Rogue One.
Okay.
And that was the one made right before this one. So you'd think, why just do it again? You guys just did it. Why can't you do it again?
Yeah.
It's a very strange choice.
Because of the changes between 7 and 8 as far as the outside, like in the beginning of 7 you have those wonderful scenes where Rey is sitting a small person inside of a huge massive ship, and she's just sitting there. That's a very like 70s fantasy art picture right there.
Yes, it is.
And here I didn't see any of that. Like they have those quick scenes where you're like, okay, here we are. And then they just move on. There's the atmosphere is kind of lacking because of that.
That's actually, if we can move on to that point, actually, that's a good segue. Oh, you know what? Let's say what we like about. Let's say what we like about the movie first.
You want to talk about what we like?
Let's just get through that because for me they're very general. They're not very like in depth. I just want to say that when the movie slowed down and what the movie did with Luke and the Jedi and being on that island and Yoda, I loved all of that. I actually liked when Rey and Kylo Ren are force talking to each other, which we learn later, like Snoke arranged that.
That was insanely
That was cool. And like, again, that's two characters stopping to talk, but we're also getting plot. We're getting character development, and the arcs are being developed. And I was very happy to see that. And it was very cleverly shot too, because they're standing around in whatever scene they are, but they're talking across, dimensions or whatever, across the Force.
And think about that. They didn't have to use any special effects for it.
No.
They didn't have to, trick your eyes.
There's a little bit of ADR, but that's fine.
You
that's
didn't
appropriate.
expect it because it's such a normal way to shoot a movie.
Exactly. And I thought that was, that's the clever, cool parts of the movie I really appreciated. I thought I was going to hate Rey being trained, and there are some problems there, but actually that was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, for sure. And there's something to be said about the fact that Darth Vader was he started out to be a very simple villain, and then throughout the series he became
Jesus.
He became the father, and then he became redeemed. Right?
And then he got
very simple.
And then he got dragged through the mud for 3 movies.
But here we have a villain, Kylo Ren. They're spending the time to develop him. They're spending a lot of time on it. You can tell, and it's effective.
I like Kylo Ren's arc a lot more than Rey's. I will say that.
Yeah, he's become, after this movie, he's become the most interesting character.
He has more dimensions, and a lot of the characters in this movie and 7 do not have a lot of dimensions to them, or at least maybe not yet.
And I think he was also meant to identify with the younger generations with insecurities.
Definitely.
That we all have, going into college for the first time.
Definitely.
He's meant to identify with the young.
He's conflicted, and he, a lot of people get stuck in kind of his negative mindsets, and they want to try to correct themselves, but they can't. Everyone goes through that, especially young people.
And his authority figure, Snoke, literally says you are worthless to him, which it's hard to watch because you're feeling for this poor guy. He made these terrible decisions, and you can see the weight of the death of Han Solo weighing on him. But
he's denying it the entire time, and everyone knows he's lying, and he can't admit it.
Right. Yeah. And Snoke is just making it worse.
Snoke is like being a master manipulator. Which, oh God, can we talk about Snoke? I'm waiting all day to talk about Snoke. Okay,
but we were talking about the good things about the movie.
That's true. So what do you like?
The good things.
What do you like about the movie?
That's what I was just talking about.
Okay, we'll continue.
Okay, well, what else is good? When they have this wonderful scene where Luke is very conflicted about the Jedi Order. And Luke is Mark Hamill brings it home in this movie.
Mark Hamill does a wonderful job.
I think there's the years in between he's played a plethora of villains.
Oh yes.
He's got so much acting experience behind him now, and it shows. He's a very effective character.
Yes.
Very deep.
Very good character actor.
He felt deep. I don't know about how deep he really was as far as it goes.
I think he was very deep.
But anyways, back to what I was saying. There was this wonderful scene where Luke is thinking about destroying historical Jedi texts.
Like originals or something.
Yeah, spoilers.
Like the original Bible or some crap for the Jedi.
Did you say spoilers?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, spoilers.
It's way
he's
before.
thinking about destroying them, and then all of a sudden Yoda appears and says, what are you doing?
Puppet Yoda, by the way. Puppet Yoda with a filter.
I was going to bring up, but okay, fine.
But that was great.
He's conflicted about destroying these books, and Yoda's like, fuck it. And Yoda just destroys the books. Yeah, and starts laughing at Luke.
The books are kept on this island on a remote planet in this like tree. And
they're gonna have seen this.
Well, so some people you're right. Okay, yeah. So he goes to burn down the tree and Yoda just goes whatever, lightning. It was great. It was nice to see Yoda's irreverence come back and his kind of jocular attitude.
And I think it was very respectful overall to the Yoda character.
It was.
Because can we talk about Yoda? Let's talk about Yoda. Just like, he was always kind of a stupid character. He's a stupid puppet. He's a Muppet. Moreover, he's a Jim Henson, Miss Piggy, Kermit the Frog, Muppet.
I wouldn't call him stupid.
No, I'm getting there, but
you call him stupid. You called Yoda stupid.
But he's so amazing.
He's great.
Because through it all, he has a very mysterious sense about him. Mm-hmm. A very strong confidence.
The aloof old master is by no means a new thing, but Yoda exemplifies it.
Right.
And it's great. And
they bring all of that back this 30-second scene, and then that's it. They didn't bring back Obi-Wan. They didn't bring back Darth Vader. It was very reserved.
No Anakin.
Overall, a nice little piece of history brought back. Mm-hmm. It was nice.
Yeah.
That scene was, I think, my favorite part of the movie.
That was a really good scene.
And then everything you said, basically, Kylo Ren and Rey talking to each other, and Rey's conversation slowly changing with Ren from "you are a monster" to "tell me what really happened" to "I understand you a little."
I love how he handles that. He's like, "Yeah, and that's all I've got." So,
okay, what else?
What else was good?
I think Carrie Fisher. Leia's character was very good in this movie as well.
Yeah.
I think
a good amount of restraint with her, which felt very refreshing.
They had a lot of this is a weird one because there's some very bad examples of this and there's some very good examples of character development. For instance, when the really skinny lady in the purple outfit, what's her name? Did they say her name?
Oh, they did. I don't remember it.
She becomes a general.
She
becomes commander of the rebel fleet. Rebel fleet.
Resistance.
I swear I haven't been drinking. And Poe starts, badgering her because he has more respect for Leia as a commander than he does for the new commander. And Poe turns out to be wrong, but the whole dynamic between her and Poe was really good.
Yeah.
And Poe, I'd say, was pretty awesome throughout this entire movie.
Yeah.
What else?
Kind of stupid, but I guess that's the point.
Well, that's the point. Yeah, he's the dumb pilot.
He had some good.
What's the
points,
phrase?
Though? He's a bad leader.
Oh, what's the word? No, he's a freaking.
He's impulsive.
Yeah, impulsive. You're too cocky.
You're too cocky.
You're too damn cocky. Turn in your badge and your weapon. He's that kind of character.
Loose cannon.
You're a loose cannon.
Turn in your X-Wing. Turn in your blaster.
And that shows.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
What else?
Those are the only real standout parts to me. That I was invested. It's when the goddamn movie slowed down and people just talked. Because I think a lot of people forget that one of the things that made the original trilogy so good was just these scenes of people talking. Darth Vader's redemption scene with the final fight at the end of Jedi is a lot of slow talking. It's a lot of tense moments there is some lightsaber clashes, and then they stop and they stalk around and they talk more, and it's just beautifully done. You have the Emperor sitting and watching and like basically just goading Luke the entire time, and it's haunting. And I saw a lot of that in this movie. There was a lot of people just like, yeah, their lightsabers are out, but things are going to happen outside of just shiny swords being flung back and forth. Which those prequels were sort of.
In fact, they managed to, I'm going to use the phrase, subvert your expectations a few times. When Luke and Kylo Ren face off. Yeah. When Leia comes back into the ship, and a lot of people didn't really like that. I think, but I thought it was very.
I can explain away Leia,
and then she goes into Odin's sleep.
Yeah, I can like. It was a little bit weird, her not dying in the vacuum in space and pulling herself back to a ship, but I can explain that away. Of Luke and her sat down and talked in the past 30 years that we weren't.
Well, I'm sure that Luke has taught her something. Yeah, that's what I've come to believe is that over the course of 30 years, the rapport that Luke has with his sister, she's learned some things from it. And I think that has led to her being a better commander. Yeah, she's. They call her general. They don't call her princess for a reason. Right. Which was great. And at first I was wondering in 7 why they decided to keep Leia around and keep her as a commander. But at least they developed her character, whereas Han Solo literally just came back in to die. His old outfit. Yeah. Running, like, looking for the Millennium Falcon and, like, doing stupid bullshit with smugglers that was stupid. Like
that had no place, in the plot.
But that's 7. We're not talking about 7. I'm trying not to talk about 7.
We'll come back to 7, I'm sure, at some point, but yes. Yes, I would agree.
What else was good?
That's really it for me. I guess the fight on the Salt Planet was pretty cool, but if it would be better if it wasn't so fucking Hoth.
There was a lot of action in this movie, but there's a lot more suspense and conversation and subtle, like, there's a lot more. This movie is not paced like an action movie entirely. And the parts that are kind of suck.
That's the problem, is the pacing is all over the place and the tone is all over the place. And
now what do you want to talk about next? I think I'm done with the good stuff.
God. Okay, so I'll start with we were just talking about backstory that hasn't been given that we can kind of like imagine and justify in our minds. Leia knowing Force stuff, I can get that because it's been established that she's Force sensitive, that her and her twin brother Luke, they were in contact for a long time until Luke fled. I can get that. What this movie and what was set up in 7 doesn't do, to its detriment, is they do not adequately explain the First Order, Snoke, and a few other things. There has been a lot of backlash against fanboys going, this didn't match any of my fan theories, and that's stupid, and fuck you, and the other side kind of going, oh, shut up, it's not Disney's job to satisfy your fan theories. Oh my god, I love porgs, right? And both of them are wrong to me because the fanboys, yes, I had some fan theories about Snoke, but I never thought like they were going to be true or that Disney should do what I think. But what Disney has not done is explained who the fuck Snoke is. A lot of people will view this as a nitpick, but it is important because
it's an integral part of the story.
Star Wars is a space opera. It is 8 sections deep now. You have to give background for things like giant villains, because if you don't adequately explain them and you kill them off in a kind of poorly arranged scene, it ruins the conflict. Because if Snoke can just be killed that easily, then there goes the stakes. And without the stakes, I don't care about the conflict. If I don't care about the conflict, I don't care about the movie. I never really felt scared for Rey or Kylo or Ben, whatever, when they were in Snoke's chamber, which is weird because he was surrounded by Imperial Guard who almost, hurt them. I was more afraid for them when they were fighting than when Snoke was around. Snoke's reveal as this supposedly super powerful, Sith Lord is just completely, there's no background. Where was he? Is he a reincarnation of Sidious? Was he just hanging in the Outer Rim? We literally do not know where he came from. And that got me thinking about the First Order. There's a disconnect between 6 and 7. 30 years pass. The Republic gets control of...
I think we should have ended on this, but go ahead.
Well, okay, so the Republic gets control, and I would assume built up an armada again and an army, because, you don't want the Empire coming back. The First Order arises from the ashes of the Empire. But in 7, they have a whole fucking planet. They have a fleet. They have a giant army.
They're very well outfitted.
They're very well outfitted for, being what basically the rebellion was in 4, 5, and 6.
For being destroyed more than once and not being gone.
Yeah, and then the Resistance is kind of on the same even footing in 7.
You think so?
Yeah, that's what it said to me.
Well, except for the huge death planet.
Yeah, other than that, but they blew that up because they always do. By 8, Snoke arrives with his gigantic fucking armada, and they're even better outfitted than they were before in the span of a month or something. Not a lot of time has passed, and they're basically the same size as the Empire was.
Okay, so before we go on, let's back up a little bit here.
Well, let me finish my thought, and then you can go back on the points. So my point is, I have no real sense of how powerful the First Order is, because they seem like they can just magically amass all this stuff very quickly. Snoke, I don't know where he got all this stuff. I don't know anything about him, so it's hard for me to get a good grasp of the First Order and why they're suddenly so powerful, and now the Resistance is tiny. Where's the Republic fleet? I know a bunch of planets got blown up, but where is anything? The universe, the galaxy has so little explanation to what happened in those 30 years, and I don't need an entire scene. I need a couple paragraphs in the opening crawl. I need something. And because they left all that out, it's very weird and jarring.
Yeah, okay. So this gets into a couple things. First of all, let's talk about the fact that the Empire was very strong to begin with.
It was huge.
It was huge. No one ever explained how it got that big. It was just that big. But it was okay because it was the beginning of the series.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
In 4, 5, and 6, it's big because it is just the evil Empire.
Right, and it's run by the Emperor, which was at first, he wasn't even introduced until
6.
5.
6.
He wasn't introduced.
Oh, no, he was in 5, you're right.
He was in 5 as a hologram.
Yeah.
And then he was in 6, right?
Yeah.
So it was a slow build up to the ultimate enemy that was the person who could control the Empire, right?
Yes.
In this one, they did it weirdly opposite, where they introduced Snoke as a hologram in 7. They bring him in 8 and kill him in 8.
Yeah. Leaving
a power vacuum for Kylo Ren to jump into the pilot seat of the First Order. Now,
and because
I think because Snoke is not, if we don't need to know everything about the First Order, because we never knew anything about the Empire to begin with. We never knew the politics behind why they got as powerful as they did.
Well, and even when we were told it, in 1, 2, and 3, we're told what happens, and that makes more sense than what we were given for Snoke. Palpatine manipulated an entrenched system, and then after he rises to power, 30 years transpire between 3 and 4. And it's okay, yeah, you took 3 decades to basically shape the galaxy to your vision.
Yeah.
You have power. You reshaped the army and the military. I get that. The 30 years between 6 and 7, where the fuck they get all that stuff?
Right.
Why isn't the Republic fighting back?
Right.
There's so many holes.
I think they could have gotten away with that if they had more of a background for Snoke, because Snoke has to be worse than the Emperor was in order to be vicious enough to carve out the First Order.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's kind of a joke. He looks like a cartoon. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't all he does is wave his hand around and go, ooh, I'm doing force powers. And look at how powerful I am. I'm smacking somebody against a wall. That's supposed to
Everyone
surprise
can do
us.
that. Yeah.
He's not doing anything special. He doesn't do anything special. He commands the First Order, but
via
we've
proxies.
seen the First Order, as far as an audience viewer, we've seen the First Order before in terms of the Emperor. What makes them different?
Yeah.
So we have a lack of interest in the First Order. We have a lack of interest in the main villain, and then they just kill him off.
Snoke has no unique identity. And again, some people are going to say this is a nitpick, but it's not. Powerful Force users in Star Wars have to have unique identities. Obi-Wan is very easy to separate from Yoda, who's very easy to separate from Luke.
Even the Sith that they brought back, even the Sith that they just talk about, have unique identities.
Plagueis, everyone knows his deal because they saw Episode 3. Sidious had a lot of screen time, but even in 4, 5, and 6, it's like he's the dude in the dark cloak who shoots lightning and looks like a monster. And he looks very different and acts very different from Darth Vader. So Snoke, all I know is that he talks through a hologram most of the time and can throw people a lot. But that's it. They didn't get creative with how he came to power because that is important.
Right. But I think that this is all hinting at the bigger flaw of why we have such mixed feelings about the new generation of Star Wars. Is because... Now, I'm not saying that the prequels were good movies. But George Lucas had the confidence to take it in a completely different direction. We started out in a very happy place overall, with a very different aesthetic, with the Jedi knowing literally, with everything available to them. They could fight amazing. They had all these powers available. They had resources, right? It was a very different environment than 4, 5, and 6, where they had no resources and there were like 2 left.
Yeah.
Right? So that's just the Jedi alone, not thinking about the environment. He introduced a planet that was an entire city. At the time, that blew my mind.
Oh, Coruscant's a cool concept. I have no problem with that.
In this version, 7, 8, and 9, what they're doing is they're literally mirroring 4, 5, and 6's complex. The power dynamic. Yeah. Which doesn't really work because the Rebels succeeded in 6.
If 7, 8, and 9 had been the first installments, I would be less critical. But as much as you don't want the prequels to be a thing, and they keep trying to say, look, we're moving on from 4, 5, and 6, they have to acknowledge those other stories. They're all movies in the same series. And you're absolutely right.
We get none of the success that
the Rebels fought so hard for.
And Luke got. We get none of that. As fans of the series, I know a lot of time has passed, but we get to see none of their success.
It's very weird to me that Leia is a general of another essentially terrorist organization, reasons. Like freedom fighters.
Why do they have to be terrorists again? If they were right, if they were morally right, why are they rebels?
She's a princess too. She has legitimate political claim to the New Republic. You would think that she would have been like, yeah, let's fix all this shit. It's very, very strange that the Republic kind of just went off and like didn't prepare at all. And they keep 8, they keep talking about we need to get word to our allies in the Outer Rims. What about fucking everyone else? Right. Where is everybody?
So literally the only thing that the Rebels have done to repair the damage caused by the Empire was try and create new Jedis. That's it. And they didn't even succeed at that.
They didn't even do that. I think
Luke just did it
on his own volition.
Everyone else is just there.
Empire's gone cool.
Han Solo is literally still a smuggler. Leia is another leader of a small rebel alliance.
The Resistance, because you can't call them Rebel Alliance again.
Chewbacca's, I don't even know what Chewbacca was doing before he decided to get back into the pilot seat of the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. We were literally just thrown back into a situation where nothing changes. And
you're back to square one, and you can't do that with an episodic thing.
But we're supposed to be satisfied with that because give the audience what they wanted. Give them the exact same thing. And that's what they're trying to do. This is the tragic flaw of trying to create a new series, is because you have to satisfy the fan base, and there's absolutely no way to do it.
You have to take risks, and to steal a line from episode 8, failure is the best teacher. And Disney did learn.
But it's not, though, because nobody learned anything. Well, George Lucas failed with the prequels.
Okay, so Disney learned from the failure of the prequels. They learned that a bunch of things. Don't do so much CGI. Don't do stupid cartoony rabbit retards. Don't do all this stuff.
But they're still doing stupid cartoony rabbit retards.
But they learned that, okay, we have two options. Number one, we can take a risk. We can fling it far in the future. We can make new characters, new worlds in the Star Wars universe. And we can try something. Or we can play it super safe. We can take elements of the existing trilogies and we can mash them together to how we want. And we can appeal to this set of amount of fanboy stuff and fan service stuff to make sure we sell it and people will keep coming back. What has happened is that's turned 7 and 8 into, in my opinion, bland offerings. There's good in there. There's enjoyable parts. But as we're talking now, there are deep flaws that completely take away the glow I had walking out of 8 in a span of 24 hours. Because these are the things that are sitting in my head, not the good parts I liked.
The more you think about them, the
they
more
fall apart.
The idea of the new series falls apart. Because I think this goes back to what I said originally, which is the idea that Star Wars is you can't really do much with it. I still don't think that's true. I'm hard pressed to find a good example other than what George Lucas did with the prequels because there was some good shit in there.
I'll bring it up again. The video games. There are video games.
There are also the video games, which a lot of people like.
And the KOTOR series are the best examples of, yes, you can go 100 years in the past or whatever and make a really good, compelling, well-written, character-driven Star Wars story that has something for everybody. The problem is that video games are big and can take hundreds of hours, and movies have to be an hour and a half. But why they didn't just take some cues from the expanded universe, which they basically shunted when they made the new trilogy.
They did take some cues from what
They took some, but not the right ones, and not enough.
And 7, 8, 9 was supposed to be about the fall of Luke, if I'm remembering my expanded universe correctly.
Yeah, the post original trilogy novels are Luke needs to be redeemed. Yes.
Right.
And it's Han and Leia's twin siblings who become really powerful Force users and have to go redeem Luke. Right. Yes.
Which is interesting.
I mean, that's a cool idea.
And it's a different dynamic.
It is.
But I mean, this is what gives me such mixed feelings about this new franchise is because its heart is in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Even though they give us elements of interesting dynamics, I'm really interested in the character of Kylo Ren. I
am now, yeah. Its objectives are clearly not let's make a good movie. It's let's make something that'll get us $1 billion. And right. I say that because, and that's not to disparage all the hard work people put into these movies or the good parts of the movie that I liked, but there are so many instances.
Right. But I mean, they've thrown so much of the they've thrown so much of the baby out with the bathwater though, because they're making a new version of 4, 5, and 6, but they aren't using their award-winning special effects in any sense. I'm not saying that they're amazing to do 70s effects now today, but some more, but
they're not trying to be innovative like the 70s effects were. They're just CGI is easy, fuck it.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what it all feels like.
It's
easy. Here are some quippy moments where a porg is staring down Chewbacca trying to eat a porg. Or here's a funny scene where Rey is laughing at Luke eating, or staring at Luke eating green milk from a weird walrus.
There's, and this is a good point to segue into the amount of hey look a porg, where the action almost stops and the camera center pans and it just shows a porg being cute and pitiful. Just took me right the fuck out of this very tense scene of where they're running for their lives. And that's not good. And I know it's there to sell merchandise. Yes, the Ewoks were cute and they were meant to sell merchandise. That was the third movie, and that was one portion of it. So much of this movie is, quick, when DVD comes out, make a meme out of this, make a GIF out of this. And yeah, you want to, it is updated for a modern audience, but that doesn't mean you need to play to the lowest common denominator. which Disney's going to do because they're Disney. And that's the big problem here. This doesn't feel like a Star Wars film to me. It feels like a Disney film to me. And you should not be mixing those two. They're going to. And that's why I'm probably going to see 9, but I'm done with the rest of it. I'm not seeing the new trilogy after this. Yeah. I'm not seeing the live action show.
At some point, it's just going to devolve into Transformers 11 anyway.
There's going to be a billion standalone movies, and I'm not seeing any of them.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't care about young Han Solo. It's just... It's unfortunate.
It's like, it's all filler.
It does feel all filler.
It feels as though they're producing filler for the intent of juicing the cow. Or milking the cow.
Milking the weird seal thing that Luke was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Another big issue is the kind of tonal schizophrenia this movie has. When Rey finally goes up to Luke and hands him the lightsaber, it's this very tense scene. And he immediately grabs it and throws it behind him, and everybody laughed and clapped.
Well, I thought that was pretty interesting.
I didn't like it because if that had just been the only thing, all right. But then the rest of the time, he's like, look, fucked up shit happened, and I can't tell you a lot, and I don't trust you, and there's a lot of dark stuff happening, and she's trying to convince them, and then it's occasionally interspliced with so much goddamn slapstick.
Yeah.
That really bugged me because what am I supposed to feel? Am I supposed to feel that this is a tense scene, or am I supposed to laugh? You can interplay both, but not all the damn time. Almost every character in the fucking movie had a quippy remark, like Marvel-style one-liners back and forth. If everyone's doing that, your characters lose their characterization. And that's my problem. There were certain
characters that were always serious. But even in this movie, Kylo Ren has a funny slapstick moment. Like
Snoke, I guess, didn't, but Snoke also fucking died really fast.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about that. Yeah. So,
in the original trilogy, Darth Vader never cracked a joke. And that's why he's such a loved, formidable figure. He never cracked a joke. He's supposed to be a bad guy. Same with the Emperor. You know? The heroes occasionally cracked wise, because there are heroes and we want to root for them.
Did Luke ever crack wise, though?
I think he,
he laughed a few times, but he himself was never a comic relief.
Not really. And there's little places of comedy you can glean from the original trilogy, but they're never in your face, I'm making a joke now, everyone laugh. And there was so much of that in this movie. Almost every character did it, and I'm like, again, this doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie. This feels like a Marvel movie now. I don't want a Marvel movie. I want a goddamn Star Wars movie. That's what's on the ticket that I purchased. And I think they're doing that to appeal to the lowest common denominator so goddamn much. And in that, you lose your characterization.
Right, but a little bit of it is okay. It's overall, It's a very dramatic movie, and so you need a little bit of that.
But they kept putting it during the dramatic parts.
Okay.
The nice thing about the prequels is that, yes, there's action, but it's contained. And then every scene has a clear tone to it, and it's easy to process. In this one, they are flipping back and forth between 2 or 3 plots over and over and over again in rapid succession. I remember one time they went from the space battle back to the island for 20 seconds and then go right back.
Which is oddly another reason why the Kylo Ren and Rey back and forth, you weren't expecting it because they're just jumping so much between characters anyways. And all of a sudden, all the 2 characters they're jumping between can see each other.
Yeah. But that had a tone to it that I understood, and there was no back and forth. Rey did say at one point, can you please put on a shirt? And that was the only quip in that entire exchange, and that was well placed for me. I was like, okay,
funny.
I get that. That's funny. And
also because I think I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or not, but it feels like they're setting up Kylo Ren and Rey romantically.
It could be.
It feels like it, and I honestly, what they ended up trying to do was a romance between Finn and new Asian lady. What's her name?
New Asian lady.
What's her name?
I don't remember.
They introduced her.
Yeah.
And then they've literally known each other for half an hour is what it feels like. And then all of a sudden she kisses him. She saves his life and she kisses him. This is another where I just don't trust this movie in the hands of the directors is because action can't just be an action scene and then people, go to bed.
Yeah.
Or there's time in between. Or, Leia's there with the Ewoks.
You have to wind down and wind up to transition between scenes.
Luke goes off to learn with Yoda for a bit and then comes back. There's none of that. We're supposed to, literally, the movie starts where the last one left off. Literally. So we're supposed to know everything that happens in between. There's no room for characters to develop emotions for each other off screen. Yeah. Which this whole series suffers from. It feels like everybody's known each other for 5 minutes.
And yet...
Finn and Rey have this really strong connection because they've been through so much. But it feels like everything they went through together lasted 2 days.
And it kind of did. Because he wakes up when she's gone.
And that it's
and he spends the entire movie trying to get back to her. And then when he finally does, it's like, oh, by the way, love triangle. Why?
I get that
you were actually doing a good job building their relationship. What the fuck? It's frustrating.
It's frustrating because you could very easily put time in between, and then all of a sudden, these guys were on a ship together for a couple months. They know each other really well. Now they're getting together. Okay, that makes sense. There's none of that.
And I'm worried about them putting time between anything because when they do, they don't explain anything adequately. So it's like everything is just like, oh god.
So
you keep making the same mistake.
Finn and
I forget her name. I don't know her name.
She was watching the escape pods for deserters. So
she just lost her sister on the bombing run.
They were, in my opinion, the worst two to put together. If you put together Poe and the General Lady, they killed her off this movie, so that can't happen.
Of course, why not?
Rey and Kylo Ren, they're probably not going to do that because they want Rey to be a strong, independent woman.
Yeah. Kylo Ren has to be redeemed or die trying.
But instead, you have two characters that literally just met each other, and then we have a whole scene we have to talk a whole.
I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to say
it's time to bring up the casino.
What was
it? What was the name of that place?
I don't care.
Chantilly something.
Whatever.
Space Vegas.
I learned later from a coworker actually that the reason that scene exists is to set up the new trilogy. Because those little kids and the one that does the Force on the broom at the end, they're going to be the new trilogy characters. And my immediate reaction is, that should have just been episode 7. That should have been our new Star Wars. Why the fuck couldn't we do that? Why does it take 3 goddamn movies to pass off the torch? It doesn't need to do that. 7 was enough. Get to the new shit, please. And because of this, it's got the fucking cinematic universe syndrome now, and something that was already part of a cinematic universe. But I don't remember in any other Star Wars movie someone going like, this scene, it's weird, it's out of place, it's going to come back in like 4 movies. That's not good filmmaking. That's stupid. And this entire fucking casino scene where it's let's put in political commentary in my fucking space opera, it's not supposed to have that.
Yeah, out of place.
It's very out of place. And like, if you want to do philosophy and stuff, that's what Star Trek is for. Star Wars.
Define what you're talking about.
Okay, so they have the Finn and his new beau go to the casino planet to find a hacker because they need to get on Snoke's ship. And otherwise they can't, it's impossible, which is already weird because sneaking on ships happens all the damn time in Star Wars. It's everywhere. And yeah, people get caught a lot. That's the risk you run. And they get caught anyway. So why didn't they just do that and get caught? It would not have changed the story. But no, they have to go to the casino planet. They have to get the hacker to come back, to have the hacker betray them so they get caught, to have a big battle, to do what they were going to do anyway. If you had cut out that entire scene and the new character with the hacker on the casino planet,
you could explain it away with a line.
It wouldn't.
You could literally explain it away with, we have new hacking abilities now.
Yeah.
Or so-and-so gave me the code. Yeah. The whole sequence doesn't have to exist.
The many Bonthan spies died to get us this information. They made a whole fucking movie out of that, but they didn't need to, and they didn't need to make this scene for it. But it exists to set up the new trilogy. It felt out of place. It felt very annoying. I'm not saying...
This is the little, Disney excursion of the movie, because they go off, they have a tiny mini adventure in the span of, 6 hours while the other ship is...
Something like that,
getting destroyed or something.
Yeah.
Well, the other ship is trying to outrun the
fleet.
The First Order.
Yeah.
So during that time, they go into jail. They break into a casino. They piss off a whole bunch of policemen. Mm-hmm. They free a whole bunch of weird, big-eared horse animal furries.
There's an animal cruelty section in it of like, oh, I remember these. I grew up on a mining colony, and people who treat people badly are bad, and just all this stuff.
They befriend children.
That's weird.
It's like the whole sequence was like another movie. It didn't have to be a part of this movie. It was very odd. And then they come back with their hacker man. They come on board the First Order ship, Cloak.
Snoke's capital ship, yeah.
Right, and none of it works anyways.
Yeah.
It all fails.
They could have just said, hey, yeah, we can... The movie could have said, yes, we can get you on there. We don't know if we can get you back, and you may be caught. This is a suicide mission. Which is fine. They're desperate. And, that makes sense.
Well, even more than that, the more time, if they didn't go off and have this weird adventure, they would have had a more interesting, suspenseful, dramatic time trying to get around the ship and spend more time together so that your romance makes a little more sense.
As opposed to like, let's go down here and then learn something about ourselves through the majesty of political commentary. Which, as I keep trying to say, that's fine. Star Trek does it very well. If your show is about asking difficult questions and that whole discussion is fine. Star Wars is very black and white and good versus evil. That's what it operates on. So to have this whole thing about... It did in the prequels too, like, oh, I'm a slave and slavery is bad and war profiteering. And like, dude, not the right movie for this. Why is this here? You could have spent this time doing more stuff with Rey and Luke, or Rey and Kylo, or Poe and someone.
We don't even see Luke. Luke starts out towards the beginning of the movie. He says to Rey, "All right, I'm going to teach you 3 lessons."
We don't even get the third lesson.
There's so much there they could have taught. There's a lot of discussion that could have been had there. I think that the audience would have appreciated.
Everyone was eating that up. It was great.
We wouldn't have been bored by that.
This actually leads me to my next point, that Rey has become such a Mary Sue, especially through this.
What does Mary Sue mean?
Mary Sue is basically a blank slate. What's her face from Twilight?
Okay.
But is OP, is overpowered. She gets minimal training. She gets 2 out of the 3 steps, and she's suddenly the new space Jesus. And it feels very... I'm never afraid for Rey. She seems to just come out of everything unscathed. Kylo Ren doesn't. Kylo Ren has failures and is constantly struggling because that's his character. But Rey doesn't. She just she walks on water the entire time. And I think if they didn't have the casino scene, they could have showed her struggling and learning things. But one day, in one of the scenes on the island, she literally just picks up a lightsaber and just goes, yeah, I know how to do this because I have genetic memory or some shit.
Even though last time I barely defeated Kylo Ren, this time I'm better just because I have a stick.
Yeah, it's very, this no time passed that we saw her being trained. With Luke, when Luke was training with Yoda, we saw training, not montages, but there were specific scenes dedicated to, visualize things, go off and have an adventure, which they do a lot of that in this, but it's very shallow. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like she's learning anything or even being taught anything.
They have this weird sequence where she's trying to discover who her parents are by going through a hole, and she encounters a mirror. The mirror shows her herself.
Which I took to just mean,
reasons.
You already know the answer, stop lying to yourself. Which gets revealed later on of hey, her parents aren't anyone special, which was another fan theory problem. I didn't care. But I don't care who her parents are, it doesn't matter. I know,
but that whole sequence, the fact that it felt honestly like we got nothing out of it. It didn't feel like it hit home.
Because, again...
It was just some weird optical illusion thing for fun.
For why not?
I think
because it was in Attack of the Empire.
This was the moment where they were trying to call back to...
Luke doing the same thing in the cave. Yes.
The failure in the cave. But it doesn't hit the same way. It doesn't hit anywhere near the same way.
Well, it's especially stupid because Kylo Ren basically spells it out for us in their next Force conversation.
Right. So
why didn't they just do that?
They didn't even need this scene.
Again, unnecessary scene.
She talks about, something is drawing me down there. Something, there's something down there for me. And then there's nothing there.
Nothing happens.
it feels empty.
Yeah, they set it up as, I was thinking, oh, this is a place where the dark side is very powerful and she's going to be tested, but she wasn't.
But she should have been, because later on, Kylo Ren tests her. It would have been a great moment to test her.
Like, if she had gone down there and saw Kylo Ren in the reflection, it would have been like, okay, the movie's hinting
No.
That would have been, I'm not saying they should have done that, but that would have been better than what we got. Like, if she had another, like, intense Force conversation with him down there because the dark side's amplified, I could have seen that. There's a bunch of stuff they could have done, but it was a meaningless scene. And again, time wasted on a movie that was already pretty long.
Yeah.
It just...
But the space needed to be there. It just needed to be devoted to something a little more
meaningful,
overall effective.
I have a big problem with how Kylo Ren ascended to the supreme leadership and used it again with the slapstick. He basically chokes out Husk and says, "I'm in charge. Fuck you." Husk goes, "Okay," because Snoke had told him earlier, having a rabid cur around is useful. Just make sure to put them in their place. Later, when he's supposed to be the new supreme leader, he's tossing Husk around like a rag doll, and everyone's laughing. And I'm like, okay, he has an arc. When is he going to start acting like it? It was very off-putting, and it diminished his authority in my eyes, because now you're a joke again. Like, at what point is your character going to progress on this one issue? It was very weak.
I mean, overall, killing Snoke, the scene dramatically, it worked in killing Snoke, but I think overall it's a bad decision, because it feels like the First Order has lost its balls because of it. It feels like...
It kind of revealed that it never had any, but it magically does. Again, like, bad characterization and background for the First Order.
This weird thing about the First Order, like, it feels... You can definitely feel like the power vacuum, and you feel like Kylo Ren does not fill it.
No.
Not in, like, he's there, but what is really to keep the glue of the First Order together? I don't think he commands the respect necessary to...
He scares a lot of people. I get that feeling, but I don't get the feeling that he commands them.
I mean, if Darth Vader took over the Empire, I don't think the Empire would stay together. It wouldn't. Like, they followed the Emperor for a reason.
He's a godhead figure.
And I mean... I don't know. Whatever. Just, I don't know. This is...
A big problem I had with his Snoke's death scene after the fact is he's sitting there. Kylo Ren is, has his sword out and is told to strike down Rey. And Rey's trying to tell him, no, you don't have to. And Snoke goes, ha, I can see into his mind. I know every action. And I know that he is reaching out with his weapon to strike at his one true enemy. And they're showing the lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber, next to Snoke, turning, and they're telling us. They're showing us way too much, when they shouldn't have shown that at all. And they should have just had a back and forth between those three characters, just faces. And then suddenly, when he strikes, it goes back to Snoke, and Snoke's been stabbed. That would have been a great reveal. You could probably see it.
You think the way they edited the scene?
They shouldn't have shown Luke's lightsaber at all until the very end. And it's a very obvious choice that they fucked up on.
Yeah, it's like, I mean...
It took the wind out of that death scene for me, because I'm like, now, not only do I not know anything about fucking Snoke, who somehow raids this Empire-level army, now he's dead. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's just, it's unfortunate.
Of all the characters that they developed really well, for each one they developed well, there's one that they killed off in this episode that they didn't develop well. Like, Phasma dies as well, and
or we think maybe she'll come back.
You're right, maybe not, but it felt like she literally fell into a pit of fire.
I'm sure her suit can contain all that. I don't know.
Think so?
I mean, and again, she's on screen for so little. They're doing Boba Fett unintentionally became popular despite being very little in the movies, and they're replicating that happenstance, but not realizing that that was an accident.
They're replicating they're replicating Star Wars' ability to make characters out of nothing,
but they're not developing them.
But no, I mean sometimes they don't even need to be developed. Like, Phasma will be merchandise regardless of whether or not she's dead. I mean that's what they're going for. I don't know how effective it's going to be, because
it'll be effective. She looks cool. That's the point.
Yeah. one other thing we should definitely talk about is music.
Yeah.
Music is interesting because, once again, parallels to 4, 5, and 6. Each place has its very signature sound. Mm-hmm. And it's very heavy. The whole series is heavy on the symphony. Mm-hmm. Very big fanfare. Mm-hmm. Every place has a very unique sound. And it's not necessarily subtle or dramatic. It's just theme music that goes, right?
It can be subtle and dramatic.
It can.
Not always, but it can be.
But what I'm getting is it's music. Mm-hmm. It's not a cue to make you feel something.
But it can.
It's not sad. No, I'm talking about the theme music. I'm talking about the Hoth music. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the Death Star Run music. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about they had a Ewok Planet. They have music for the Ewok Planet?
I think it was very light. I think it was.
But they have music for everything. They have music. Yeah. They have the. Yeah. They have the.
Whenever the Force plays, you hear da na 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 na.
In this movie, the music felt impotent.
Because it was just like, hey, these are the scores that John Williams does that everyone knows, and we'll just play them everywhere all the time.
I know, but like they had new places. The Salt Planet should have had its own theme music.
Absolutely.
Did it?
No. Well, if it did, I don't remember it, and that's the problem.
And it should have been strong and loud, and because a lot of crazy things are happening, it's the dramatic end, of the Rebel Alliance. There should have been something powerful there. And if they're going to go off and do this weird, crazy adventure in the casino, that place should have its own fucking music.
It did.
Snoke should have its own music.
Very briefly. The casino did have its own thing. It was like a Maramba thing, but again, too brief. It wasn't, and that's the problem that you're honing in on, is that 4, 5, and 6 had theme music. Every place has a theme that plays through it.
But more what I'm getting at.
But in this one, let me just do this quickly. In this one, those themes are really cool, and we're just going to use them almost in every scene to evoke different emotions,
right.
with missing the fact that, no, they were specifically used in certain scenes. You have to match them. You can't just be like, this is the soundtrack we're going to revolve with. It's just, it doesn't work that way.
But I think more importantly, the music that was there for a place belonged to the place, not to the emotion.
Well, except for the Force.
Okay. All right.
But yes.
Here, everything was about the emotion. Whatever it was to get you to evoke whatever emotion you were supposed to feel, the director wanted you to feel, instead of just having something there in the background. And that is the nostalgic part. Yeah. That is the part that makes us go back. I don't know what it is. You're 90% there without the music. That music is the last 10% that takes you 100% there. Without it, it feels like an empty shotgun shell, a blank.
And it's, we really did need some new music, and they just recycled what they had. And one of the few things I would never change if I made a Star Wars movie is the music. I would definitely keep it, but I would use it correctly.
But this is one of the things that George Lucas did in the prequels that was very effective.
Well, John Williams did.
The music was present. The symphonic, what is it?
The new bad guy, Battle of Fates, I think. Yeah, the new bad guy music in the prequels is badass. It's great.
There's a lot of good music in the prequels,
and they missed that opportunity.
And even
in this
like
one.
now, that music is really good.
Because it's John Williams. He's really good. Use him. You have him. Why are you not using him?
This is a perfect opportunity for a new composer, too.
Sure.
I think this would be a great moment to bring in some new talent.
But again, it's not Disney's objective to blaze trails. It's to be safe. And they're doing a great job of it. And because they're doing such a good job at it, I'm like, I know that 9's going to have all these same problems, or I'm assuming it will. You've missed the boat on me of doing the new trilogy is like what I've been asking for. I don't care anymore because I've already had 3 movies disappoint me. I don't care. I'm probably going to see 9. I may not even see it in the theater. We'll see. Whatever, there were fun parts of it, but it falls apart really, really quickly. And there's too much disappointment, and there's too many missed opportunities and obvious Just differences. I think it's very possible you and I are not the target demographic anymore.
Well, I mean, this is Star Wars.
It's Disney Star Wars.
Literally everyone.
Well, 4, 5, and 6 weren't aimed at everybody, but they caught everybody. And then the prequels, who knows who the fuck he was targeting. Definitely kids, but also all that weird political stuff is just stuffy and weird. Yeah. Who the fuck was that for? 4, 5, and 6, lowest common denominator. And I don't want that. I want a movie that takes risks.
4, 5, and 6? You mean 7, 8, 9?
Yeah, sorry. 7, 8, 9 is just lowest common denominator. It's like people were saying it's subversive and it's challenging, and I didn't get that at all.
Well, there's
a couple of moments, but nothing
like,
big.
Like the structure of the story is what they played with. That's what they played with the most with, but that's what they had to change without it in order to keep it from just
and that's
continuing and being Empire Strikes Back.
And I didn't feel like challenged. I felt like, good God, movie, slow the fuck down. We do not need to be bouncing this fast.
A lot of stuff happened, and not everything made sense in why it happened. It just happened.
And a lot happened, and I didn't care that it happened. It felt meaningless. Like, why is this in the movie? Like the casino scene. That was like half an hour.
It was like completely pointless.
It was stupid. So I can see why people like this movie, and I'm not going to say that you shouldn't. If this is catering to what you want in a Star Wars movie, cool. But I'm no longer on board. If we're starting to wrap up here.
Oh, it does sound like we're at a wrap up point.
Yeah, we could talk more, but like we just
we could talk forever on this.
Star Wars. Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we kind of answer our last questions?
I want my 70s sci-fi back.
Yeah.
In some sense.
Yeah.
Like they need to take more risks than what they are taking.
They're not gonna.
But at the same time, less risks.
they
what I'm saying is they need to. They're doing all the same stuff Hollywood is doing these days, which is the
bring in a different director, quick, save the movie, and then it feels terrible when you watch it.
And then everything is like CG still has the for some reason still has the identity of being new and fresh and the most cutting edge thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes away so much at the same time because they're spending so much time to make things look so unrealistic that your brain goes, nope, that doesn't work. I can't physically doesn't work. I'm already taken out of this situation.
Yeah. You want to go, Star Wars isn't sci-fi, it's science fantasy. Blade Runner 2049 fucking nailed it for me this year.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great film. They should have taken more cues from that, but they're Disney. They can do what they want.
Well, I mean, they're not going to... I mean, 2049 wasn't that much of a success, though.
It made a profit, but yeah, it didn't make enough of a profit.
Yeah.
It'll be a commercial failure by Hollywood standards these days, which is a shame and a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to wrap up...
I have a lot of mixed feelings about this movie.
Same. Is it a good movie? Outside of Star Wars, just on its own.
On its own?
Mm-hmm.
On its own, it would have been... How could you ever describe this movie as being on its own, though?
The same way Rogue One would have to be. Just a general space movie.
I think if it didn't have the attachment to Star Wars that it had, I do think it is a good movie.
I think if outside the context of Star Wars, I would say it's better than in the context. I don't know if I would be super happy with it. It's hard to say. I think maybe the stuff they didn't explain, I could explain away. So maybe I would have liked it more. Yeah, you have a point there.
Within the universe of Star Wars, you just feel like the heart isn't there.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely people trying. But there are a few moments,
that's the whole thing about it though, because there are a few moments where the heart is there, and that's when Yoda comes back, and that's when they try so hard with Kylo Ren's character.
But that's
when Luke, who is now out of the series, is...
shines bright.
Mark Hamill is by far the best actor in this movie.
He did great.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's like there's writing in there, and there's effects in there, and there's scenes in there that, like, yes, there's a great Star Wars movie trying to get out, and for every good scene, there's like 5 that I'm like, ugh, or I'm actively angry at, going, why the fuck is this here? And that, unfortunately, that doesn't make it a good movie to me. It makes a bland movie that had potential. So, as a Star Wars movie, is it good? I would say almost. But almost is not good enough for me to say, yeah, it's a good movie.
Almost is, I think I'm going to leave that one too.
Will we be seeing any of the new Star Wars movies? I will see 9 to close this out, just to see what happens with Kylo Ren. Beyond that, no. I won't be seeing the standalones. I won't be seeing the new trilogy. I will not be seeing the live-action TV show. After this, I'm done with Star Wars.
I am pretty much there with you.
Mm-hmm. Maybe 9 will blow us away, and it'll give us new hope.
And then we'll go back and watch A New Hope.
I highly doubt it, but if 9's going to be anything like 8 and 7, where just Disney's fucking imprint is everywhere, I'm not going to like it.
Okay, what's the last question?
That is the last question.
Okay, so it isn't... Does this affect your life in any way that's permanently damaged?
No. No, I mean, like...
other than the time we put into this review.
I will always have the original trilogy. I'll always have KOTOR 1 and 2. There's, nothing can kill your childhood. I'm okay moving on. Even with the new Star Trek, which I haven't seen yet, but doesn't, like, every new Star Trek for the past few years has been a complete failure for me and not interesting. I still love Star Trek. I love sci-fi, and I will be on the lookout for new, great sci-fi and science fantasy stuff.
I think that's where we're at, is that we're Chris and I are both begging for new universes to tickle our fancy.
And not everything has to be a new universe. Arrival was fantastic. Give me more Arrivals. Give me more Ex Machinas. Hell, I even liked Oblivion. At least they were trying something in Oblivion.
Yeah, which is why I want to go. There were a few commercials before the Star Wars movie, actually, that did look interesting. Annihilation looks interesting.
It looks interesting. It may not be what we think it is, but I definitely want to give Annihilation a try.
I'm interested, actually, in looking at the book, because I think they made all the wrong decisions with the trailer. They pretty much told us everything that's going to be in the movie.
It's so hard to get past trailers these days and to judge movies on trailers, and I try not to, but yeah, if I see it enough times, I'm like, great, everything's been spoiled for me.
But yeah, I'm interested in reading that book. Maybe
we'll talk about it in the coming months.
And I just read The Martian, and that was pretty fun.
The Martian Chronicles.
Martian Chronicles, yeah.
Yes, old book by, not Bradbury. What's his face? Or was it Bradbury?
It was Bradbury.
It was Ray Bradbury.
It was Ray Bradbury.
I'm still reading Neuromancer. Actually enjoying it a lot. Just taking my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us on this.
And please don't.
Hour and a half talk about Star Wars.
Why did you make me do this?
So, we are going to be back to regular content in the new year. We're probably not going to be weekly, but we are going to be doing more literature. We're going to be doing movies. We're going to be doing all sorts of stuff. We're going to be expanding our content, and we're excited to do more. And we got a lot of cool stuff planned. So thank you for being with us. Here's the 100 subscribers, which we just reached.
Did we? Did we reach 100 finally?
I know, finally got us our own damn URL. Which is nice.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you to AJ, who reached out to me to say congrats on the 100. That's how I learned about it.
Aw.
Thank you for
That's sweet.
Thank you for being there, dude, and for being a very constant supporter. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody. We're gonna get in touch with more authors in the coming months. We're gonna get back into everything and new stuff. So
yes, and we should. I still want to read more pulp sci-fi. Are we going to do any more
Absolutely,
of that?
We are. Most of it's on the Internet Archive now, which is great.
That stuff is the best.
Well,
I mean it's also pretty terrible.
It's the best experience, but, holy shit, some of it doesn't make any sense. All right. Thank you, guys, and goodbye.
To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome.
And musings are your musings.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
And here you may savor the challenge and promise of the future.
Hi, I'm David.
And I'm Kayla.
And if it wasn't readily apparent from that, we're huge nerds about Disney. That's why we're doing the Animusings podcast.
Once a month, we'll sit down and talk about a film in detail from the Walt Disney Animation Studios filmography, covering them in chronological order, from Snow White to Moana and beyond.
To Moana and beyond!
Sweetie, we're not doing Pixar yet. We'll do that after.
And that's gonna be a long time coming. Anyway, if that sounds up your alley, come join Kayla and I, and maybe a guest or two, as we explore the Disney animated canon, film by film.
With the hope that it'll be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.
Ooh, nicely said.
Don't thank me, thank Walt.
This podcast is a part of the Benview Network.
You can find this and other podcasts like it at BenviewNetwork.com.